I never just cheated on him, I weaponized his own trust against him, and everyone keeps saying I must have wanted to get caught. That's the part nobody grasps, the thing that makes my sister hang up when I try to explain. I didn't want this exposed, I wanted it to exist in a parallel universe where consequences were theoretical. What I did over those 6 months wasn't a lapse in judgment, it was a full-scale demolition of our life, and I was the architect holding the detonator while telling myself I was just redecorating. The people who know fragments of the story think I'm a bored wife seeking thrills. They don't understand that I was fighting a war against my own predictable existence, and in the process, I'd built a digital archive of my destruction so meticulously detailed it would make a forensic accountant weep. Mark's disappearance wasn't just him leaving, it was him erasing every trace of his existence from our shared world after discovering something worse than infidelity. I'm going to show you the exact texts he found, but first you need to understand the system I built to betray him. I'm a user experience designer by trade, which means I map out digital journeys for a living. Last February, I created a private Instagram account called Designing Destruction with 237 followers, all strangers from adultery forums. I posted screenshots of Mark's vulnerable 2 a.m. texts when his anxiety peaked. "I'm scared you'll realize you settled," he'd written, and I'd caption it, "My poor fragile husband thinks he's not enough." Spoiler, he's right. David, my affair partner, would comment within minutes, "Can't wait to fuck you on his side of the bed tonight." The texts Mark ultimately discovered weren't my affair messages. They were the notification emails from this account, which I'd accidentally synced to our shared iPad. That's the crucial misunderstanding. People assume he found flirty messages, some explicit photos. But Mark is a cybersecurity analyst. He found the metadata, the scheduled posts, the analytics dashboard showing which betrayal content got the most engagement. The affair itself was almost incidental to the performance I'd built around it. I met David through a freelance project redesigning his restaurant's branding. He owned 3 upscale bistros, had that chef thing where he seemed both exhausted and intensely present. Our first meeting ran 3 hours past schedule, not because of anything romantic, but because he understood kerning in a way that made me want to show off my process. Mark had stopped asking about my work years ago, treating my career like a hobby I'd eventually outgrow. David asked to see my mood boards, and I showed him the secret Pinterest account where I kept images that felt too raw for client presentations: crumbling architecture, flooded cities, wilting flowers in perfect vases. "Destruction with composition," he said, and I felt seen in a way that had nothing to do with attraction yet. That night, I posted my first screenshot, a text from Mark asking if I wanted Thai or Italian for dinner. Caption: "This is the most exciting decision he'll make all week." 2 likes. The small decision that started everything was enabling 2-factor authentication on my affair account using Mark's phone number instead of mine. I told myself it was safer, that if David ever went crazy, I could prove it wasn't my primary identity. Really, I was building a fail point I knew would eventually collapse. 3 weeks into the project, David invited me to his test kitchen after hours to photograph dishes for the new menu. The kitchen gleamed under industrial lights, every surface a still life waiting to happen. He plated a halibut ceviche while explaining how acidity wakes up the protein, and I recognized the same satisfaction I got from perfecting a user flow, control through precision. When he offered me a spoonful from his hand, the intimacy registered logically. This is crossing a line. My body responded anyway. I tell myself later that the affair began with that ceviche, but the honest timeline starts with the second Instagram post, a photo of David's knife roll, caption: "Precision tools for precise destruction." I'd already begun curating the narrative before we'd touched. Our first kiss happened in the walk-in cooler, surrounded by hanging ducks and temperature-controlled wine. His mouth tasted of juniper and guilt, a flavor combination I immediately documented in my notes app as peak transgression. That night I posted a screenshot of Mark's text: "Sleep well, love you to the moon." My caption: "He loves me to the moon, I'm fucking someone in the walk-in." Distance 40,000 miles and counting. 47 likes. The rationalization solidified. I was documenting a modern marriage's decomposition for artistic purposes. Every post was a case study in emotional user experience. The fact that David's hands on my body felt like electric current had nothing to do with the project. I was just being thorough. Mark noticed my first slip in April. I'd been screenshotting David's messages for my archive, and one popped up while Mark was showing me a meme on my phone. "Looks important," he said, watching the notification disappear. "Just the restaurant guy," I said, already swiping it away. "He wants to adjust the color palette." Mark's expression went blank in that specific way that meant he was logging the data point but not processing it yet. Like he was waiting for more variables before running the analysis. The small consequence I dismissed happened 2 days later when our internet went down, and Mark went to reset the router in my office. He wouldn't snoop, I knew that about him, but he'd see my screen, and I had Instagram open in a private browser. I sprinted from the kitchen, nearly dropping a casserole dish, and found him staring at my monitor. The screen showed a client email, though I developed muscle memory for CMD tab that would make a pro gamer jealous. Just checking if it was the modem or the service, he said, and I relaxed. He wasn't suspicious, he was being methodical, that was his nature. I posted about it that night. He almost saw. The thrill is in the almost. David commented, next time leave the browser open, I dare you. I replied, don't give me ideas. The first external person who questioned me was my assistant Lee. She noticed I was scheduling site visits to David's restaurants that didn't align with the project scope. You're billing for travel that isn't in the contract, she said during a budget review. The client expanded the retainer, I lied smoothly. They want environmental design now, not just branding. She nodded, but I saw her make a note in red, a color she reserved for discrepancies. Lee had been with me for 3 years. She knew my tells. What she didn't know was that I'd started using the business credit card for hotel rooms, coding them as client hospitality. The affair had become a line item in my profit and loss statement. David thought it was clever. You're turning our intimacy into a tax write-off, he'd say, impressed. I'd post screenshots of the receipts, blacking out the amounts but leaving the dates visible, close enough to our anniversary that followers would notice. The truth bomb that reframes this: I never deleted any messages. Not because I was careless, but because I was building a data set. Every I love you to Mark and every I need you inside me to David existed in the same cloud storage, tagged and searchable. When Mark finally accessed my phone, he didn't just find an affair. He found a controlled experiment in emotional destruction that I'd been running for half a year. He confronted me on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were when I posted analytics. Engagement rates on betrayal content peaked midweek. He placed my phone on the kitchen island, screen up, showing a notification from Instagram: designing destruction has 12 new likes. The account name was fully visible. I was trying to check the weather for my run, he said, voice flat. Your phone kept buzzing. I thought it might be urgent. The defensive mode activated before conscious thought. That's just a side project. A conceptual art thing. Your art project notified you that someone liked your post about my anxiety text from last night. He'd clicked through. Of course he had. He was a systems analyst. He saw the architecture of my betrayal laid out in grids and timestamps. You went through my phone. You synced it to our iPad. I was syncing the weather app and your entire digital ecosystem downloaded. It's like you wanted me to find it. That accusation again. One that made my blood pressure spike. I didn't want you to find anything. I wanted... What had I wanted? The honest answer was too grotesque to speak aloud. I wanted to witness my own life's collapse from a safe distance, to be both the demolition crew and the audience. Mark pulled out his own phone, opened his texts, and showed me a message I'd allegedly sent at 3 a.m. I wish you could be more like David. He actually sees me. I didn't send that, I said, and technically it was true. I typed it in his phone while he slept, screenshot it from my archive, then deleted it from his sent messages. But the screenshot remained in my photos and the iPad sync had recovered it from the cloud. It existed as a ghost in the machine, a message he never saw but I preserved as evidence of his inadequacy. You wrote it, he said, not a question. You wrote it and kept it like a trophy. I became defensive when confronted, not about the affair but about the documentation. It's my process. I work through emotions by externalizing them. You externalized my vulnerability to 237 strangers who laughed at it. He'd counted. He'd seen the follower count, the comments, the entire architecture. The first significant relationship damage wasn't Mark leaving that night. He stayed silent, moving through the house like he was cataloging what remained of his life. The damage was in watching him scroll through my posts, his face not crumpling but setting into a mask I'd never seen. He'd always been expressive, easy to read. That night his features became a locked interface I couldn't access. But you don't understand, I said, hatting the words even as they formed. The account wasn't about you, it was about me, my experience of marriage. You tagged posts with husband fails and metadata. He read them from memory. You turned my fear of losing you into content for people who get off on adultery. I had no justification for that, so I pivoted. The marriage was already broken, I was just documenting the cracks. That lie would become my anchor for the next week, repeated to myself in the shower, whispered into my pillow. The marriage was broken, that's why I did it, not because I was broken, never that. Consequences began escalating in ways I hadn't mapped. David started pulling back, uncomfortable with how public our private moments had become. You posted about the knife thing, he texted, referring to a post where I'd photographed his chef's knife next to Mark's apartment key. Caption: which cuts deeper? He wanted out of the narrative. This was supposed to be ours, not performance art. I told him he was overreacting. It's anonymous, no one knows it's you. You posted a photo of my wrist tattoo, it's distinctive, my wife could find this. That was the first time I considered David's wife as a real person rather than a narrative device. She existed outside my user flow diagram, beyond the edge of my screen. I'd been treating her like background noise. The situation spiraled when Lee confronted me directly. I found the Instagram account, she said, voice shaking. You used the company email to verify it. The confirmation emails are in our server logs. She'd been running diagnostics on our invoicing system and found the metadata trail. You've been billing the affair to the business, but you've also been using company assets to host whatever this is. I tried to explain it was a creative project, but she pulled up the post where I'd screenshotted her red flag note. Caption: my assistant is catching on, might need to restructure her access permissions. You made me part of your content, she said. I'm in your posts. I made my worst decision yet, but not the ultimate one right there. I offered her a raise to stay quiet. I'll make you partner on the next project, just don't tell your husband that his wife is monetizing their marriage's collapse. She was crying now. You're not just having an affair, you're running a fucking subscription service for other cheaters. She had the numbers right. I'd enabled a tip jar feature, made 847 so far. I'd posted breakdowns of which betrayal types earned the most engagement. The breadcrumb about the ultimate secret: I'd scheduled a post to go live on our anniversary. A photo of a positive pregnancy test. Caption: timing is everything. Black pregnant BYTKF marriage going you pin flames. I wasn't pregnant. I'd bought the test as a prop, planning to fake a scare for engagement. The post was set to auto-publish in 3 days. I didn't know I was actually pregnant. Hadn't bothered to check. The symptoms, nausea, fatigue, I'd attributed to adrenaline crashes from posting too close to discovery. Mark moved into the guest room that week but kept appearing in shared spaces, his presence a constant reminder of the system I'd broken. I'd see him reading in the living room, his face illuminated by his phone's screen, and I'd wonder if he was checking my account for updates. He never blocked me, he just observed, like he was monitoring a malware infection to understand its spread pattern. My emotional unraveling began with small self-sabotage. I started drinking wine at lunch, leaving bottles in the recycling so he'd see them. I take calls from David on speakerphone in the house, knowing Mark could hear, then pretend to be surprised when he appeared. I was trying to force a confrontation, anything to break the silence that felt worse than yelling. The public facade I maintained was impressive. I posted on my professional account about a new rebrand, all smiles and design mock-ups. Clients messaged congratulations. One wrote, "You always seem so together. How do you balance it all?" I responded with a winky emoji. Posted the exchange to my affair account with the caption, "My public thinks I'm a boss. My husband knows I'm a bomb." It got 89 likes. I pushed away the one person who tried to help. My mother called, hearing something in my voice during our weekly check-in. "You're not yourself," she said. "What's really happening?" "Just work stress, a big project." "Does Mark know how stressed you are?" "Mark knows everything," I said, and hung up before she could hear me break. The near confession happened during a therapy session I demanded we attend. The therapist asked Mark what he needed to heal. He said, "I need to understand why she turned my pain into a content strategy." The therapist turned to me. "Is that accurate?" I could have said it was. Could have revealed the pregnancy test post, the monetization, the way I'd studied his triggers like they were SEO keywords. Instead I said he's misrepresenting a personal creative outlet. This is about his inability to respect boundaries. Mark laughed, not a bitter laugh, a genuine, surprised sound. "She's good," he told the therapist. "You should see her engagement rates." That night he asked the direct question I'd been dreading. Was any of it real? "The last 6 months before I found the account." "Were you already gone?" I deflected. "What does real mean in the context of a failing marriage?" "Don't do that, don't give me interface copy, just answer." I couldn't, because the truth was I didn't know. I'd been living in the narrative for so long I'd lost the ability to distinguish between experience and documentation. Every moment with David felt authentic in the moment, but the second it ended, I was already mentally drafting the caption. The setup for the biggest revelation happened when I went to delete the scheduled pregnancy test post. I decided the night before that I'd gone too far, that I would come clean about everything, dismantle the account, accept the consequences. But when I logged in, I found Mark had already accessed it. He changed the scheduled caption to "My husband found this account and everything in it. This is the final post." I freaked out, texted David, "He's in the account." He scheduled a post. "I think he's going to expose us both." David called immediately. "What did you tell him about me?" "Nothing, just that just that we fucked." "Or did you give him my wife's name, my restaurant locations, the details he could use to ruin me?" "Done all of that." Posted photos of his restaurants, tagged them with location data. I'd made David a character in my story, given him arcs and vulnerabilities. There were posts analyzing his marriage's weaknesses, comparing his wife's Instagram aesthetic to mine. He knows everything, I whispered. David hung up, blocked my number. That was the last time we spoke. The full confession began when I confronted Mark about the scheduled post. You can't publish that. It has my followers, my content. Your content? He looked at me like I was malware. It's my life, my texts. My fear of being insufficient that you broadcast to 237 people who paid to watch me suffer. They didn't pay, I started, then stopped. There was no point lying now. I downloaded everything, he said. Every post, every comment, every tip you received, I have a spreadsheet. Did you know you made the most money on Tuesdays? Posts about my anxiety earned 40 more than posts about our sex life. The most damning detail dropped when he opened his laptop and showed me his own account. He created one called Watched Me Wife Destrious. It had 3 posts. The first a screenshot of my pregnancy test post still in draft. Caption, she scheduled this to publish on our anniversary. She doesn't know she's actually pregnant. I found the test in her trash. The second post, a photo of our wedding rings, his placed over mine. Caption, she kept posting about which cuts deeper. The answer is both. Always both. The third post, a video of him packing a bag, timestamp for that morning. No caption, you're pregnant, he said. I checked the test myself after I found it. It's positive. You threw it away because you thought it was negative. You didn't even read it properly. The immediate fallout was physical. I threw up in the kitchen sink while he stood there, not moving to help. The pregnancy I'd faked for content was real. The timeline meant it could be Mark's or David's. I hadn't kept track of those specifics. That level of detail hadn't seemed necessary for the narrative arc. Mark's justifications, if you could call them that, were simple. I'm posting these 3 things and then I'm vanishing. Not disappearing like leaving. Vanishing, you'll never find me. I've already transferred my half of the money. Closed the joint credit cards. My family thinks I'm traveling for work. By the time they realize I'm gone, I'll be somewhere you can't reach. You can't do that, I said, wiping vomit from my chin. What about the baby? What about the spreadsheet of my panic attacks that earned you 847? You monetized my breakdowns, so I cost analyzed my exit. Turns out disappearing forever is cheaper than divorce. He left the next morning while I was asleep. I know because I woke up at 3 a.m., checked my phone, and saw he'd published the third post, a photo of his empty side of the bed. Caption, she always wanted engagement. Here's her viral moment. The final hidden element revealed itself a week later when I tried to access our bank account. He hadn't just taken his half. He'd left exactly 847, the amount I'd earned from his pain. With a memo, you're cut, we're square. Concrete fallout spread across every area of my life within days. Lee filed a formal complaint with the Freelance Guild, attaching screenshots of my affair account where I'd mentioned using client funds. I lost my certification. My sister changed her locks after I showed up drunk, demanding she tell me where Mark had gone. You don't get to ask that, she said through the door. You made him a ghost. My professional reputation dissolved when a design blog picked up Mark's 3 posts. They framed it as a case study in digital betrayal from the victim's perspective. My clients didn't just fire me, they issued public statements distancing themselves. One wrote, we cannot align our brand with someone who treats human connection as a B testing. Social media became a funhouse mirror. My affair account got flooded with support messages, stay strong, queen, and his fragility is showing. Meanwhile, my professional account, still linked to my real name, received death threats. People found photos of Mark and me from happier times and photoshopped his face with devil horns, my face with a scarlet A made of code brackets. The duality was sickening. I was both villain and hero depending on which account they followed. My internal state versus external perception grew so disconnected I stopped recognizing myself in either narrative. Physically, I was pregnant, alone, sleeping on a couch in a studio apartment I could barely afford after the financial hit. Mentally, I was still drafting captions, lost my husband, my business, and my dignity. Engagement 100. The unexpected consequence I didn't anticipate came from David's wife. She found me, not through the account David had scrubbed every trace of himself, but through a private investigator. She knocked on my door with a manila envelope. Inside were photos of me and David, timestamps correlating to my posts. My husband is claiming you stalked him, she said, voice calm. That you created this fantasy relationship and he was afraid to say no because you threatened his business. He's using your posts as evidence. She was turning my narrative against me, using my own documentation to claim victim status for her husband. It was so brilliantly cruel I almost laughed. Did he tell you I was pregnant? I asked, her face flickered. He said if you are, it's not his, that you were sleeping with other people. I had been, not many but enough to make the denial plausible. I'd posted about them too, code names only the architect, the bartender, the consultant. A whole roster for my followers to speculate about. David was just the most documented. I told her the truth. I don't know who the father is. I don't even know if I'm keeping it. I built a machine to destroy my life and now I have to live in the wreckage. She left the photos and walked away. I saw her post about our conversation an hour later on a private Wives of Chefs forum. She quoted me accurately. It got 412 likes. A moment of genuine awareness broke through at my first prenatal appointment alone. The technician asked if I wanted to know the due date. I said yes. She gave me a date that made the paternity math impossible to ignore. I'd been with David exactly 9 times in that window. With Mark 4, I'd posted about each encounter with both men, timed the posts for maximum engagement, cross-referenced their schedules. I had the data. It could be either. I posted to my affair account, still active, still monetized, found out I'm pregnant. Can't tell if it's the husband's or the chef. Poll and stories. 73 voted for David. I made 23 in tips. That's where I am now. Pregnant, alone, running a subscription service about my own collapse while trying to figure out if I'm having a baby. Mark remains vanished. His sister texted me last week he's alive. He asked me to tell you that, nothing else. I'm telling this story now because yesterday I received a notification. Someone tipped me 100 with a message, I'm pregnant too. My husband found my text last month. How did you keep posting after he left? And I realized there are women, maybe men too, using my documentation as a blueprint. They think I'm strong, that I survived something. They don't understand that survival and documentation aren't the same thing. That I'm still performing, even now, even after the audience has seen the final act. The show must go on because I don't know how to exit the interface I designed. So here's the real confession. The one Mark never let me give him. I didn't have an affair for 6 months. I had an affair for 6 months while running a live documentary about having an affair, and I was so focused on the narrative that I missed the actual destruction happening in real time. The texts he found weren't the worst part. The worst part is that he understood my system better than I did. He saw I built a trap with no exit, so he built a door and walked through it. People think I wanted to get caught. They're wrong. I wanted to get witnessed. There's a difference. Getting caught means consequences. Getting witnessed means you finally exist. The 847 was my witness fee. The baby is my witness now. Its heartbeat the only engagement metric I can't monetize. If you're reading this because your partner found your texts, stop documenting. Close the accounts. The story you're telling yourself about why you need to record this, that it's processing, it's art, it's survival, is a lie. It's a user flow with no endpoint. I know because I designed it and I'm still trapped inside. Mark